We all know Gandalf, the wise wizard, the guiding hand of the Fellowship, the slayer of the Balrog. In The Lord of the Rings, he feels unstoppable. But what if we told you, Gandalf is far from the strongest being in Tolkien's world, that beyond the Shire, beyond the shadows of Mordor, exist powers so immense they could unmake kingdoms with a single thought? Today we climb to the very peak of Arda's hierarchy, to reveal the most powerful beings in Middle-earth. Some allies, some enemies, and some so mighty that even the Dark Lord himself was nothing in their presence. Before we climb higher, let's set the stage with Gandalf himself. After returning as Gandalf the White, he was no longer the wandering gray pilgrim, but a force of divine authority. Empowered by the Valar, he could break Saruman's staff with a word, resist the will of Sauron through the Palantir, and even banish the lingering shadow from Theoden. But remember this, Gandalf was still bound by limits. He was a Maya, a lesser Ainur, and forbidden to unleash his full power. His mission was guidance, not domination. In a straight-up duel against the Titans of Middle-earth, Gandalf would fall short. So, who outclassed him? When Gandalf faced the Balrog of Moria, it was a clash for the ages. But it also revealed something. This wasn't an easy victory. It was a desperate battle where both combatants perished. And only through resurrection did Gandalf return stronger. Balrogs were Maiar twisted by Morgoth into demons of fire and terror, towering figures wreathed in flame and shadow. They wielded whips of flame, weapons of darkness, and radiated a dread so suffocating it could shatter morale before a blade was drawn. Imagine multiple Balrogs at their prime during the First Age. Entire armies of elves scattered, cities set ablaze, and heroes slain in single combat. If one Balrog nearly took Gandalf down, that tells us everything about the vast gulf between him and the beings higher on this list. Smaug gets all the attention thanks to the Hobbit, but the true apex predators were the dragons Morgoth unleashed in the First Age. Take in Calagon the Black, the largest winged creature to ever exist, so vast his wings blotted out the sun. His very presence was apocalypse incarnate, and when he finally fell from the sky, his crashing body shattered the triple peaks of Thangorodrim. Gandalf versus Calagon? Not even close. These dragons weren't just beasts. They were weapons of annihilation, bred for a single purpose, to obliterate armies and break the will of entire nations. To slay Calagon required Arundel, empowered by a Silmaril, battling him for an entire day and night with the aid of the Great Eagles. That's how far beyond Gandalf's strength they truly were, powers that reshaped the very landscape in their ruin. Here's where things get interesting. Sauron was also a Maya, like Gandalf, but unlike the Grey Pilgrim, he fully embraced domination and sorcery to their darkest depths. At his peak during the First Age, Sauron commanded vast legions, forged fortresses of dread, shape-shifted at will into wolf, serpent, or shadow, and could corrupt the minds of even the proudest elves and men. He wasn't just a warrior, he was a master manipulator, strategist, and sorcerer, weaving lies and terror into weapons deadlier than steel. Even after losing his physical form multiple times, Sauron's will alone nearly crushed Middle-earth during the Third Age, bending kings, wraiths, and nations to his service. Gandalf himself admitted, if the One Ring ever returned to its master, no one, not even the wise, could stand against him. But believe it or not, even Sauron had superiors. If evil had a hunger, its name would be Ungoliant. This monstrous spider existed before the shaping of Arda, a being of insatiable void. When Morgoth sought her aid, she demanded the ultimate price, the light of the two trees of Valinor. And she didn't just drink their sap, she consumed their very essence, plunging the world into darkness. Later, she even turned on Morgoth, nearly devouring the most powerful being in Arda at that time. Morgoth survived only by summoning his Balrogs to save him. Let that sink in. A creature so terrifying that Morgoth himself had to call for help. Compared to Ungoliant, Gandalf is a candle in a bottomless abyss. If the Balrog in Moria gave Gandalf a legendary fight, imagine the one who commanded them all. Gothmog, the lord of the Balrogs, wasn't just a beast of shadow and flame. He was a strategist and a destroyer of legends. He personally slew Feanor, the greatest of the Noldoran elves, and later killed Fingon, High King of the Noldor, during the Battle of Unnumbered Tears. It took Ecthelion of the Fountain sacrificing his life to finally bring Gothmog down in Gondolin. Gandalf wouldn't have stood a chance against Gothmog at his height. This was a being who shaped the outcome of entire wars, with fire, fear, and sheer brutality. And then, above all others, there was Morgoth, the first Dark Lord, once known as Melkor. He wasn't just a corrupt Maya like Sauron. He was a Vala, one of the original powers who helped shape the very world. His strength was beyond comprehension. Mountains crumbled at his will. Oceans shifted at his command. And he poured his essence into Middle-earth itself, tainting it forever. Dragons, Balrogs, and countless horrors were his creations, born from his malice. When he strode into battle, entire hosts of elves and men fled in terror, and even the mightiest heroes could barely scratch him. Gandalf, for all his wisdom and hidden strength, would have been utterly powerless before Morgoth's dominion. It ultimately took the combined might of the Valar to overthrow him, proof that Morgoth stood in a league no other being in Arda could ever match. And finally, the beings even Morgoth once stood beside, the Valar. These were the godlike rulers of Arda, each embodying aspects of creation itself, from the seas to the skies, from the growing earth to the very breath of life. Manwë, lord of the winds, whose word carried the will of Ilúvatar. Ulmo, master of the oceans, dwelling in the deep places untouched by light. Auli, the smith, who forged the mountains and taught craft to elves and dwarves alike. Any one of them could unmake armies with a mere gesture. Even Tolkas, the laughing champion of the Valar, wrestled Morgoth into submission when all others faltered. Compared to such might, Gandalf was but a single ray of light, purposeful, vital, yet only a fragment of their brilliance. His restraint was by design, a reminder of just how far the ladder of power reached. And then, there are whispers of something else, beings not counted among the Valar or Maiar, nor remembered in the songs of the elves. The Nameless Things. Gandalf himself hinted at them when speaking of the deep roots of the world, saying they were older than Morgoth, dwelling in lightless caverns where no hand of Ilúvatar shaped their fate. What were they? Ancient spirits twisted before the beginning of time? Leftovers from a reality before Arda itself? Tolkien never says. All we know is that they slumber far beneath the foundations of Middle-earth, in tunnels deeper than Moria, in places where even Balrogs feared to tread. Some fans have wondered if the Watcher in the Water, that tentacled terror that barred the Fellowship's path, was one of these things, rising briefly from its abyss. Was it a glimpse of the Nameless, or just another monster of the dark? Gandalf never answered. Perhaps he dared not. The Nameless Things remind us that not all power in Tolkien's legendarium was meant to be known, and not every shadow has a name. So, where does that leave Gandalf? A hero, yes. A savior, absolutely. But the most powerful? Not even close. Above him stand dragons that could blot out the sky, demons of fire, and beings so vast they shape the world itself. And if you think Morgoth was the peak of power, remember, even he feared the wrath of his own kind. The Valar weren't just stronger than Gandalf, they were gods walking the earth. So, who do you think was the ultimate being in Middle-earth? Morgoth, Ungoliant, or someone even greater? Perhaps even the Nameless Things, lurking where light has never touched. Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button and subscribe for more lore of shadow and flame. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you on the next one.